Have you ever just stopped and wondered, why is learning a new language so incredibly hard? It's this universal struggle, right? Well, today we're going to jump right in and unpack the science behind what makes it so tough, but also what actually helps people succeed.
I mean, you know those people, right? The ones who just seem to soak up new languages like a sponge. It feels like magic. Meanwhile, for so many of us, it's just this long, grueling uphill battle. So what's their secret? What's the real deal here? That is the core mystery we're going to get into today. Okay, so let's start with the big one, the factor that everyone points to, age. Is there really some kind of magic window for learning? A point in your life where that door to fluency just slams shut for good? Well, this idea has a name. It's called the critical period hypothesis. And the theory goes that there's this biological sweet spot from birth till about puberty, when our brains are just perfectly primed for language. This is all tied to brain plasticity, which is just a fancy way of saying our brain's incredible ability to rewire itself. And that ability is at its absolute peak when we're kids. But, and this is a really big but, it is just not that simple. The whole idea of a hard cutoff age is basically a myth. In fact, as adults, we actually bring our own powerful hidden advantage to the table. See, here's the crucial difference. It's about the rate of learning versus the ultimate attainment. Adults are often way faster learners right out of the gate. We can use our developed minds to consciously figure out grammar and memorize vocabulary. Children, on the other hand, they play the long game. With years and years of just being immersed in it, they tend to be the ones who reach that truly native-like intuitive level of fluency. So it's not about who's better, it's about having different strengths at different stages of life. But, biology is really only half the story here. There's a powerful inner game at play too. And your psychology, your mindset, your feelings, that can be just as decisive as your age, maybe even more so. And check this out. A huge review of scientific literature found that the two most dominant psychological factors are motivation and anxiety. Each one accounts for a whopping 17% of the difference in learning success. They're like these twin engines that can either rocket you forward or just grind you to a complete halt. So what does that motivation actually look like? Well, it can be integrative. That's that deep, personal desire to connect with a new culture and its people. Or it can be instrumental, a practical goal, like needing the language for a better job. And then there's this really cool concept called the ideal L2 self. That's a powerful vision of the person you dream of becoming through speaking this new language. Now, on the flip side of that coin, you've got anxiety, which basically acts like an emergency brake on your learning. And it's more than just getting nervous. It's that deep fear of making a mistake that keeps you from even speaking. It's that lack of confidence that holds you back. And get this, high anxiety can literally block your brain's ability to process and remember new information. It's a real barrier. And there is one more piece to this inner game, aptitude. Think of this as a kind of natural talent for language, and it's totally separate from your general intelligence. It's about how easily you can hear and copy new sounds, or how you can just intuitively feel the right way to structure a sentence without even being told the rules. This helps explain why some people just seem to pick things up so much faster. So we've talked about age and psychology, but language doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? It's social. And that brings us to our third major factor, your social world. Because, as it turns out, connection is absolutely key. This brings us to a really fascinating idea called Schumann's acculturation model. The main concept is actually simple but profound. Think about it. Have you ever noticed that the more you integrate with a community, the more you become a part of it, the faster you learn their language? That is the model in a nutshell. And the crucial factor here is something called social distance. Now, this isn't about miles or kilometers. It's the invisible gap, both social and psychological, between you and the speakers of the new language. The smaller that gap feels, the more you're going to interact and the faster you're going to learn. But if you feel like an outsider, that gap widens and it creates this huge barrier to picking up the language naturally. Okay, finally, let's look at how this all comes together. We've talked about the who and the why, but how you learn is just as important. It turns out there are two fundamentally different paths to fluency. So on one side, you have acquisition. This is the subconscious, natural way you learned your first language as a kid, just by being around it and trying to figure out what people meant. On the other side, you have learning. This is the conscious, rule-focused stuff you do in a classroom, studying grammar charts and vocabulary lists. Now here's the key. Neither path is better. It's all about using the right tool for the job. Acquisition is what builds that natural, intuitive fluency. But explicit learning, that's fantastic for making quick progress and really nailing down complex grammar. The true masters of language learning, they're the ones who figure out how to blend both. So, let's put all these pieces of the puzzle together. What's the final takeaway?
What are the real keys to language mastery? First, remember, age isn't a barrier. It just changes your advantages. Second, your mindset, your motivation and anxiety levels is a massive driver of your success. Third, social connection is a powerful accelerator. And finally, the best approach is a blend of that natural acquisition with some focused learning. So here's the final thought I want to leave you with. We've seen there are a lot of factors at play here, and some of them, well, they're out of our hands. But knowing all this, what's the one factor that you can control starting right now to completely transform your language learning journey?